Kia ora, good afternoon. Welcome to the Eye in the Sky Show podcast. So today I would like to talk about Untersberg in Salzburg, Germany. Untersberg Mountain, the mysterious Untersberg Mountain. So as you know, I've been putting a lot of hours into doing research to find subject matter for my podcasts. And I stumbled across Untersberg Mountain and the mysteries of Untersberg Mountain. And the reason why it fascinated me is because a lot of these, unsolved mysteries, paranormal channels and that I'm going to have reported for many years people experiencing time slips and time travel, which, I'm a time jumper. Like quantum magnetics is time, and the manipulation of time is my field of science. That's my physics, is all to do with time and, the containment of time within atoms and matter, and how we're able to manipulate it in order to, have certain things happen and stuff like that. So, my YouTube and my websites, my social media and that are full of me talking about me being a time jumper. So naturally it piqued my interest, because when they were talking about time slips, I was like, hey, how is that possible? Because as far as I know, I'm the only time jumper. And I understand how it works perfectly, and so it caught my interest because the term time slip is the term that I use to describe classic hauntings. It's when you have like a time clash and time overlaps, so that you will see the past, the present, or the future in the now as time clashes, like their time and your time pass by each other. So you will integrate with the past or the future, or, the current present that isn't your present. It interweaves and like passes by each other. Like, if you can imagine one car from 1973 passing through a car from 2023, and you being able to see the road that you were travelling on at that time, in that decade, in that era, with the clothes they were wearing, exact, perfect, blah, 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 and you think they're a ghost and they think you're a ghost, and, that's what a haunting is. I call that time slip. So I'll put a link in the description box below where I describe the difference between a time bend, which is what you call ghosts, and time slips, which is what I call hauntings. So it piqued my interest, and I started doing a bit of research into it, and what I found was absolutely fascinating. And so for the last couple of hours, I've been writing up a report, doing my research, and trying to put together some key notes to put into this podcast to explain exactly what is happening on Untersberg Mountain. Some people might not like me, but you have to understand I'm an occult scientist, and I have spent decades helping people understand the paranormal and the supernatural, because I have to deal with a lot of the fallout from it. People coming to me, parents coming to me with their children coming to me with experiences and that they're so terrified of. And the trouble is that, it's like Chinese whispers. Once someone says something and it spreads down the line, it can turn it into this whole massive blowout of misunderstandings and fear and misinterpretations of something that has like a scientific and logical reason or explanation. And as a scientist, I deal with facts, and I will always go to logic, doubt and reason before I go to, thinking it's supernatural or paranormal. I can quite easily identify the difference between a paranormal experience and a supernatural experience, and I can spend days, months, weeks, years delving into research in that, and I will not speak until I'm absolutely sure of my conclusion. Because if I can give these answers to people, then they have nothing to fear anymore. I take their fear away. I help them understand what they're experiencing in a way that is completely logical and has reasoning and understanding, and it uses science and facts and common sense, and then it removes that fear from them. So part of the reason why I got into the occult sciences is because of that fact. When I was doing readings for people, when I was empathic, creative empathic therapist, I was being asked a lot of questions when I had my radio show in Chicago, called the Paranormal Hour. I had people ringing and asking me questions that I didn't know the answers to, and I hated that. As a woman of science, as a woman who likes to use logic and fact and truth, and as a Scorpio as well, I don't like giving answers that don't sit well with me. And so in the time that I was no longer doing my radio show right up until now, I started researching and studying and looking deeper into it as I was forming the basis for quantum magnetics, which then turned me into biorhythmic engineering, which meant that I had to spend a lot of time looking into geology. Now, I'm not a geologist. I barely know what I'm talking about, but I know what I'm talking about when I talk about it in regards to biorhythmic engineering for the purposes of me developing my biorhythmic field generator for when my sons and I go out on location to remove paranormal activity and, alleviate Papatuanuku, Grandmother Earth, from the stresses that she has absorbed from the effects of man's detrimental evolutionary process, the way we've killed each other and hunted animals down and deforested her lands, and the fracking and the plummeting of her resources and the mining and all that. She's a living, breathing, organic object. She's one big, massive organic atom. We know she has a heartbeat and it's slowing down, and it's because we are destroying her. We are mining her. We are taking from her that which doesn't belong to us for our own selfish gains, needs and purposes. And then, worse than that, we are slaughtering her animals, we are slaughtering her trees, we are ripping her organs and her follicles out of her physical being, and she's suffering as a result. And so, we get natural disasters in that, because then Grandfather Earth comes along to protect his woman, to stand up for his woman. And so, the effects of Grandfather is that we get the disasters that we get. On top of which, with wars and things like holocausts and, the slaughters and murders and, the raping of the lands and the killing of the people and the decimation of indigenous tribes and all that sort of thing, like, she's had to witness it and she soaks it all up. This is important to this story because of the fact that Untersberg Mountain is a mountain. It is part of her. It is part of Papatuanuku. And as a gatekeeper, as an indigenous woman, as an Egyptian high priestess, it is my responsibility and my birthright to speak on behalf of her and all life out in the universe who don't have a voice, because people are either closing their ears, shouting over the top of her, or they're not interested because what she has to say doesn't suit them financially or spiritually. So I put myself out there, and a lot of people don't like me, and trust me, people have even tried to kill me to shut me up. But, while I'm standing here, I'm going to speak on behalf of my grandmother and try and do something about it. So part of the reason why I'm an occult scientist is to debunk a lot of paranormal activity and paranormal assumptions, especially when it comes to aliens. Oh my goodness. And not only help re-educate people to look at a different way to see things, but in the hopes that by seeing things from a different perspective, by seeing things from her perspective, by seeing things from an evolutionary process perspective, from an ascension point of view, from the atomic frequency point of view, you will start to treat each other a little better, and especially our planet and nature and animals and children and, all the minerals and resources and that she has so selfishly given to us, so selflessly given to us, that we have completely taken for granted. Now, if you listen to the podcast I did yesterday about Ben Nevis and how Ben Nevis and physics helped explain what ghosts are. Now, yesterday I had said to you that Ben Nevis was a volcano that caved in on itself 400 to 410 million years ago, and as a result of the porous rocks, it absorbs a lot of radiation from the sun, which then, when the temperature drops and it forms the clouds and, the ion particles, and that it projects visual images of a person standing on there to give the appearance of angels, which is ghosts. I'll put a link in the description box of the video if you haven't seen it, but it explains it all there. But this is important to Untersberg because of the fact that when I did my research, now you have to forgive me because I have scrawled these notes all over the place, so I may have to pause to compose myself while I read all this stuff out. But it's important that I get through this, because what happened was when I was doing the research into Untersberg, the first thing I wanted to know was, is Untersberg a volcanic mountain? Because of the work that I'm doing with biorhythmic engineering to develop my biorhythmic field generator, I've had to delve into the world of geology. So rocks and rock formations and, the locations of the rocks and, all that sort of thing. Like, I've had to have a mild understanding of rocks, I have talked on my LinkedIn about the pyramids and what the pyramids were for, why my ancestors built them, and how basically they're one big massive biorhythmic field generator. I'm going to take a pause for a second because my mouth's dry, because I'm nervous about doing this podcast and I don't want to get it wrong. So I'm going to take a pause and have a drink of water. I'll be back. Okay, so I started doing some research, and the first thing I typed in was, is Untersberg volcanic, like Ben Nevis? Because that's really important. When it comes to paranormal activity, the construction of the rock, the formation of the rock and the composition of the rock is really important when it comes to paranormal activity, which is why I've had to put so much time and research into developing my biorhythmic field generator, because I'm doing an organic version and one that, is will require batteries and charging for the general population. And I found an article that was called Paleoclimatology and Paleoclimatology and Paleoecology report for the early Eocene climatic, volcanic and biotic events in the Northwest Tethyan. I'll put links in, like, these are big words, of Untersberg section of the Untersberg section of Austria. That's a mouthful. Now, for those of you, if you've seen The Sound of Music, Untersberg, at the end when Julie Andrews runs onto the top of the hill and she's like, "The hills are alive with the sound of music." That's Untersberg. That song is actually very apt to this report. So let's try that again. I found an article called Paleography, Paleoclimatology and Paleoecology report of the early Eocene climatic, volcanic and biotic events in the Northwest Tethyan Untersberg section of Austria. Now, what they found was that they found Smectite, which is an uncommon form of sediment through the alteration of ash layers. Smectite can form crystallites and is associated with the dissolution of acid, volcanic rock fragments and biogenetic silica. Now, what this means is silica, biogenetic silica, another word for silica is opal. The crystal opal, the mineral opal. Opal is most commonly found in limonite, sandstone, rhyolite, Mari and basalt, and I'm actually looking into basalt for my BFG. It's not a crystal, but it's a mineral. Now, this is important because silica, opal is made mostly of water and silicon dioxide. So Opal is used for collecting thoughts and feelings. It's considered a high vibration mineral. It is also responsible for astral projection, and people say it gives you invisibility as well. Now, this is important for the simple fact that a lot of people, when they go into that mountain, they are claiming to lose their memory. They are claiming to time travel. They're going in, coming out 3 months, 12 months later, and they have no recollection of where they've been and what they're doing. So, Untersberg is made up mostly of limestone, which is very porous and absorbent. And they found traces on the northwest side of Untersberg. They found traces of methane gas. Now, methane gas causes memory loss. It can cause confusion, blurred vision, impaired thinking, impaired judgment, erratic behaviour, motor coordination issues, fogginess, flu-like symptoms, headaches, heart palpitations, and cognitive issues. Okay? One of the other reports that people found when they go to Untersberg Mountain is there have been reports of seeing little grey people, aliens with big heads and big veiny heads, and they've got grey skin and they're very little. Now, one thing that you need to understand about opal is that it's biogenetic silica. That means that it's made up of water and silicon dioxide. Now, silicon dioxide is actually quite dangerous. It is like silicone poisoning affects your lungs, it affects your breathing, and it can be quite dangerous. It's quite toxic if you breathe a lot of it in. So it gives you like things like COPD, lung cancer, like a lot of breathing issues, and if it's not resolved, you can die from it. It affects the lungs, it goes straight to the lungs. The other thing that they found in that mountain is that they found a lot of quartz. Now, quartz is the most common mineral found on the planet. There's not a single country in the world that doesn't have quartz in it. Now, quartz is made from silicon and oxygen. It forms around hydrothermic vents and magma. Now, when you have silicone in your system, it creates breathing problems. Quartz is made of oxygen and silicone, so if you have a lack of oxygen to the brain, it actually turns your skin grey. One of the symptoms of having lack of oxygen in your body is that it can give you a condition called hypoxemia, which you can get from being up in high altitudes. But one of the causes of hypoxemia is it causes congenital heart defects, which stunts your growth. And it also can give you lack of oxygen can also give you not lack of oxygen, congenital heart diseases, especially it's very common in children. It can give you something called microcephaly, which gives you an enlarged, veiny, big head. And it's mostly inherited, but it can be congenital as well. So you can get it, at birth, but it is mostly passed down through family members. So basically what I'm saying is that the report that people have been claiming to see little grey people with big heads, big veiny heads, they're not aliens and they're not little people. They are more than likely people who have lived in the mountain for a long time, for many generations, who have passed on this genetic defect of microcephaly and hypoxemia, which causes the grey skin, because they're going to have congenital heart diseases when they breed, and there's probably a lot of inbreeding as well, because it sounds like they don't interact with a lot of people from the outside world. So you're going to have congenital heart diseases, and they're going to pass this on, from generation to generation, and they're going to be little, people, because it stunts your growth, with the appearance of grey, waxy skin, with big veiny heads. So they're not aliens, and they're not a race of supernatural beings. They're just a race of people who have obviously kept to living in the mountain, and through being up in a high altitude, and with the methane gases and the oxygen and breathing in the silicone and that sort of thing, it's created, and maybe through inbreeding as well, it's created a race of genetically stunted people. And I mean no disrespect when I say that at all. It's, I'm no judge of anything. I'm just explaining the research that I found and the facts. Hitler was fascinated by this mountain. People go in there and they claim to have all sorts of like hippy dippy experiences and stuff like that, but they don't realise that depending on your frequency level now, quartz is known to reflect what it absorbs. It is like a projector. It transmits and transmutes energy. So if you're around quartz and you're angry or you believe in certain things, it's going to absorb it and reflect it back to you, so that the next person or you yourself have that unpleasant experience. And because you're breathing in methane gases and silicone, and you're dealing with high altitudes and low oxygen, it messes with your head. And it's basically Untersberg Mountain is giving people a massive like a massive a massive dose of chemicals that is affecting the brain. And so they're having these experiences that they can't recollect, that they can't recall. They're losing memory, so they're losing time, and it can take a lot of time for these chemicals to get out of the body naturally. Once you reach normal, ground level, to get the oxygen pumping back through your body again. So it can take, I know, see, when you take vitamins and minerals, it takes around about 3 months for your body to absorb the vitamins and minerals enough to actually start having a proper effect. So, when you're away from those deposits that your body's absorbing, on a toxic level, it can take up to 3 months for this stuff to get out of your system. So you will have no recollection of what you're doing. And so, when people say they're having time slips and they're time jumping or they're having time travel experience, it's not that they're time traveling. It's just that they're going into the mountain. The chemicals are the gases and, the mineral deposits that are seeping through your body that you're breathing in are creating a chemical imbalance in the brain. And then you're having no memory of what's going on because of the methane. And then any experiences you are having is because of the quartz in the mountain. It's reflecting it all back to you, what other people have experienced. And it's making people feel uncomfortable and uneasy, and people are going missing. Like 40 people have gone missing. They're going in thinking that they're having these paranormal or supernatural experiences, when in actual fact it's because they're breathing in all these gases and soaking up all these mineral deposits that aren't good for the human body if you're not fit or you're not mentally balanced. And then it's creating these effects where they're losing time, and to them they might have only felt like they've lost like an hour, but to the outside world they've lost a year or 3 months. But in actual fact, it's because their brain is in a gas induced or a chemically dangerously induced like neuropathic blank. It's like, because all of this stuff, like with the quartz being made of silicon and oxygen, and we need oxygen to survive, and you're going deep into the heart of this mountain, like it affects your brain. It affects the amount of oxygen that goes to the brain. And so because you're getting dizziness, and you're some of the people claim to experience madness, and they have trouble breathing. There's been cases of people like going into the mountain and having episodes of madness, and this is exactly what all of that is. It's not because it's supernatural, it's not because of aliens, it's not because of anything other than the fact of what that mountain is made of: limestone and quartz and methane and um, what's it called? Smectite. So there's a lot of notes. Honestly, it's it's so, and because we're biological, we're organic, we go in there. We're made up of water and that as well. We have the same minerals in that in our body, just like Papatuanuku does, because we all came from the one source after the Big Bang. It affects us, and it makes our brains go haywire. It's kind of like, maybe like having it would create with the quartz as well, mass hallucination. It would give you a hallucinatory effect, because just because of the quartz. And this is one of the reasons why I keep saying to people, keep away from crystals. A lot of spiritual people sell crystals and go on about crystals and using crystals, and they're not good for you. First of all, these are things that are mined from our grandmother. These are things that are ripped from her. They are her organs. She offers stones and rocks and that do the exact same thing. It's all the exact same thing, but because the crystals are the pretty parts of her body, that's what people want. And a lot of these cultures and tribes and that, mistakenly believe that, they have healing properties and that sort of thing. But a lot of that stuff is psychosomatic. You heal because you think it's going to heal you, so you put all of that respect into the crystal that you think is healing you, when in actual fact it's a psychosomatic effect. And this whole thing with Untersberg, as I keep saying, I think, therefore I am. If you go into that place and you have certain perceptions and connotations and understandings of what you think you're going to experience based on, the myths and legends and what's been put out there, then that's exactly what you're going to experience. Because when you take that into the quartz, it absorbs what you think, and it reflects it back at a high frequency. Quartz resonates at an exceptionally high frequency, and so it amplifies everything that it's experienced there. So all the people that have died, all the people that have lost their memory, all the people that have gone missing, all the people that have hallucinated, all the people that have seen aliens, it absorbs all of that, and then it projects it straight back to the next people coming in. And it's not real, and it's dangerous, because these these mineral deposits and that they're not here to heal us. They're here to keep our planet alive, and we're taking them from her, and we're not getting permission. See, Māori people, I wear my greenstone, and my punamu, my greenstone, that is offered up. We are only supposed to take from grandmother that which is offered up to us, like stones and rocks and shells, and she leaves that there for us to take. But because they're boring and they're brown and they're grey and they're meh, nobody wants them. Who wants a piece of rock from a river that their eyes caught to, that she's saying, take this home to heal your loved one or your pain or to help you sleep or whatever? Why would people want like a grey or brown rock when they can have like a pretty like rose quartz or amethyst or whatever? So that's why I don't wear. I have never ever in my life, in all my like 4,000 marriages, I have never ever allowed my fiancés to buy me engagement rings with real stones in them. They have to be either local to the area or synthetic, because I will not wear anything that has been mined from my Papatuanuku, because I know the dangers. You don't know who's mined it. You don't know the mind of the person who's mined it or sold it to you. You don't know the history of the land. There may have been a lot of bloodshed and famine and disasters and ruin on the land where that crystal was mined. There might have been sacrifices done there, and because it is absorbed, then you take it home and you put it around your body, and it's going to reflect what it absorbs. And we are massive electromagnetic molecules walking around where, we also reflect what we absorb. So biomagnetically, when you're around these deposits that may have absorbed something negative, like all the people that have gone missing and died on Untersberg Mountain, and you bring any part of that home, or you're around any part of that yourself, and you yourself have experienced murders and deaths and mental breakdowns and that sort of thing, the two combined is going to create a massive clash of energies, and you're going to reflect and absorb, like bouncing energy back and forth off each other through a high magnitudal impact of atomic frequency that basically turns into a cataclysmic neuropathic mind bend. And it's all because of what that mountain's made of. So I'm going to put links in the description box below, but this is really important because of the fact that so many people for many decades, many centuries have been reporting, going to sleep on the mountain and not waking up for months, and the people go missing, and the descriptions of seeing these little races of people, and people going in and having hallucinations where they think they're meeting Hitler. And I mean, see, now technically there is a scientist, I believe, I can't remember his name, but I'll put links in the description box below. He apparently went into the mountain in like 2011, I believe, and he claims to have seen Hitler and some of Hitler's guards. Now, Hitler loved this mountain so much, he built a house on top of it in Austria so that he could overlook it. And apparently he was obsessed with Untersberg, and he used to have a telescope, and he would constantly watch Untersberg Mountain. And he used to go there. He loved this mountain so much, and it's one of the reasons why they used it in The Sound of Music. So this scientist apparently went in there and said that he had an encounter where he saw Hitler and some of Hitler's guards. That would be a time slip, a haunting, where your time and their time converge, and you think they're the ghost and they think you're the ghost, but in actual fact time has interlocked and interwoven, and it is more than likely possible because he's a logical thinking person. He has an expanded mind. He will have a healthy mindset, so he's gone in there resonating at a higher atomic frequency, and through him going into that mountain with that higher resonance of atomic frequency, he's been able to step into time and see Hitler as though he was having a real experience with him, which is exactly the definition of what a time slip is. It's when their time and your time converge, and you think they're the ghost and they think you're the ghost, but in actual fact you're both seeing each other through the veil of time and interacting with each other like you're both in the exact same, well, you are in the exact same reality but in different time frames. And that's exactly what a time slip is. I always say to people, imagine a roll of film back in the day when we used to have rolls of film, and Hitler, just say Hitler 1939 was in that mountain with his guards, faffing about in there doing what he was doing, and then he interacts with the scientist from 2011, which is like the 23rd frame of the roll of film, and the 23rd frame on the roll of film bends to see the first roll of film where Hitler was in 1939, and the two pass each other. So the 23rd roll of film passes through the first roll of film, the first snapshot in the roll of film, and so 1939 and 2011 pass through each other like a veil. Like if you were to put your hands together and make your fingers pass through each other, like you're putting your hands in like a closed hand prayer, like when you're begging. If you put your left hand and your right hand together so that your fingers pass by each other so that they grip in a begging or prayer pose, that's a time slip, except your left hand would be 1939 and your right hand would be 2011. and that's a time slip. And that's why he would have said he saw Hitler. He would have absolutely seen him, because that's exactly what a time slip is. And people think that they're hauntings, but they're not. It's when time slips and passes by each other through the veil of existence, when the atomic frequency is resonating at the same pitch as because you have the existence of time and the reality of time. And the reality of time is biomagnetic time. It is the physical time that we live in. It is the world that we live in physically now. And the atomic frequency is all time. Everything that's ever happened in the universe since time began, and everything that will happen, has already been recorded into the atomic frequency, because time exists all at once. So then when you have those fluctuations in frequency, the atomic frequency reaches the same pitch as the reality of time, the present frequency. I call it you've got the Schumann resonance and you've got the atomic frequency. The Schumann resonance is low in gravity. So when the Schumann resonance is at the same frequency as the atomic frequency, you have the time convergence. The now meets the everything. Everything that's ever happened joins the same timeline as everything that's happening right now. It's basically like the needle and thread of time. The needle standing still, which is reality, and the thread, which is the atomic frequency, are fed the thread to create the future timescape, or to weave the fabric of the time-space continuum. So then he's come out and he's written his experience not knowing what it was, and scientists are scratching their head. And because I deal with the occult sciences and I deal with the sciences of the paranormal and the supernatural, it's up to me to then find explanations for it, so that people can go, oh, that's what it is. Because if you look at the history of this myth about the mountain, back in those days when this myth first started, they wouldn't have understood any of this. They wouldn't have understood anything to do with the effects of the geology on the biomagnetic frequencies of the human organism. So I could talk about this for hours. My mouth is getting really dry, because I've poured so many hours into doing this research, and I'm stuttering and stammering. I've read all my notes out, but honestly, I could talk about this for hours. It's just that I'm trying to help people understand what it is they're experiencing, so they can avoid having these negative experiences and then thinking that there's something wrong with them or the planet or the world, when in actual fact there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. And I'm honestly surprised that scientists haven't been able to figure it out. But then, like biorhythmics and biorhythmic engineering especially is completely different to the biorhythmics I know. To me, biorhythmics means the biological rhythm of the universe, the biological rhythm of the atoms, the biological rhythm of the human body and human experience, and it is the balance between what we think and what we feel. Feeling being, a physical reaction, what we think, being like an emotional reaction. One's intuitive, one's instinctual, and it is the balance between the two, taking what we have around us, what we absorb up into our body and up into our minds, and balancing the two out. That's biorhythmics to me, and that's my field of science with biorhythmic engineering, and why it's important that I learn about geology, because when my sons and I go out to these places to investigate paranormal and supernatural events and myths and legends and all that sort of thing, like with Untersberg Mountain, I need to know what I'm dealing with, so that I can use the proper materials in the biorhythmic field generator when I go there, to then, be able to do what I do in order to close the portal, to, pull the veil closed, so that people aren't having those experiences again. once people know what they're dealing with that mountain, hopefully they'll then avoid it, because like who wants to be, messed up from exposure to methane and lack of oxygen and, silicon being silica being absorbed into your body, and like who wants to have that experience? That's horrendous. But they don't know what they're walking into. When you're going into mountains and stuff like that, you don't realize you're walking into death traps, basically. And it's done that way. I mean, it's kind of like this is the only analogy I can think of. It's the equivalent of climbing up inside someone's butt and then being exposed to the methane gases and that, from their body waste. That's exactly what it is when you're going into Untersberg. You're climbing into, when you're going near anything that's volcanic, you're basically going into her butt, into the bowels. That's why it's called the bowels of the earth, So, why would you want to willingly go into that without taking proper precautions, or without, knowing what it is you're getting yourself into? Because like you wouldn't just crawl into someone's butt and then sit around their poops and their body waste and, all the gases and that are breaking all our food and stuff down. So why would you do that with Papatūānuku? And it hurts her. It pains her because she doesn't want to hurt us. And because she's been made to hurt us, she's suffering because of it. And so, this is what I'm doing all of this for. And I'm sorry if I was stuttering and stammering. It's just that I've had to look into stuff, I've had to use words and look into things that aren't common everyday language for me. So I've tried to be as succinct and precise as possible, because I want everybody to know the truth about what it is they're dealing with, so that they're not afraid anymore. Because like I said in the beginning, I've had to deal with the aftermath of people misunderstanding the paranormal and misinterpreting their experiences and that, and then they come to me and I have to give them the answers, which is why I wanted to do my radio show in the first place. And my boy gave me an incredible suggestion the other day, which I'm going to roll with as soon as we're out of here, and I get the money from my lawsuit. Once we get settled, I'm going to build my own radio. I'm going to have my own radio station. I'm going to have an internet-based radio station. I'm going to employ a couple of tech people and some talent in that, and I'm going to have my own 24-hour 7-day-a-week radio station through the internet. I'll buy all the equipment that I need, and then I will be able to bring my own radio station to the internet for people to be able to hear around the world. So I'll do my late night paranormal supernatural talks. I'll have talk show. I'll have we're going to have like the gaming hour, where we're just going to talk about, where my host is going to talk about video games. We're going to have an Indigenous hour, where people from tribes and that and from Indigenous cultures can come and talk about the things that are most important to their tribes at that time. We're going to have we're going to bring my shows to the radio station. I'm going to record all my shows so that you can hear them, and then a week later we're going to upload the video so that you can see what you were hearing the week before. And I'm also going to be having my Sunday matinee story time, where we're going to read out our story so that kids can, sit with their parents and their friends and their families and they're in bed and listen to my Anahita Wick series. And every week I'll read out a different chapter of Andre's Dragon and the Legend of Brehenies Aithusa and my son's stories and that. So we're going to get people to come and pre-record the stories and put on different voices, and we're going to have, we've been working on it all week. We're so excited. And it's very cheap. It's not expensive at all. So that's what we're going to do. I don't know what I'm going to call my radio station yet, but it's exactly what my sons and I are going to do. And then I will be able to be more professional. I will probably pre-record a lot of these podcasts. I will do live ones, but I will probably, ones like I'm doing today with the stuttering and stammering that I'm doing, I'll be able to edit all of that out and make sure that it's precise and pristine, and then we can just, upload them and people can listen to them. As pre-recorded podcasts. But I will do live podcasts, especially when I do the call-ins where people can come in, and write into the comment box and there, ask their questions, and email in their questions and that, and then I can answer them live on air with my late night supernatural talkback radio. And so that's what we're going to do. And it was my son's suggestion, and it's a brilliant idea. I don't know why I didn't think of it before. So I'm going to have my own radio station, my own internet-based radio station that will be a global one. We will have 24-hour day, 7-day a week entertainment and music and all that sort of thing. And I'm really excited. So please forgive my stuttering and stammering with this one. It's just I was dealing with things that were way out of my, like when it comes to the paleos, and that's not my area of expertise. I lightly have tiptoed into the whole geology thing for the sake of my biorhythmic field generator, but like these people, when I was looking at the research papers and that, it's like they were talking like they completely knew what they were talking about. But with me, it was like I might as well have been reading a foreign language. So I just picked out the bits that I understood and then just had to look up definitions and do my research in that in order to try and put together some sort of cognitive form of communication for you to understand what it was that I was trying to convey in this message. So I'll put links in the description box below so that you can see the experiences that people have had, like the 3 people that went missing and were found on the boat going to Egypt, and they don't know how they got there. And, it's also interesting to note that they find a lot of quartz on the top of pyramids. And if you go to my LinkedIn from about 3 months ago, you will hear me talking about how I have realised that my ancestors built the pyramids as basically a massive biorhythmic field generator, and that they used to transmit energy and transmute energy to send frequencies out, across into the universe and to reach the masses, depending on what frequency you put into the base of the pyramid. And it's one of the reasons why Nikola Tesla was so fascinated with, the construction of pyramids. And which the interesting thing is that pyramids were built using sound. So biorhythmics, my ancestors built the pyramids using biorhythmic sound, which is, the basis of which I'm putting into my biorhythmic field generator. So, they use sound frequency, basically dealing with frequency, like vibrations and frequency, and that's what I'm putting into my. It's not like because my organic biorhythmic field generator is it's not going to have any electrical parts or computers or anything like that. It's all biological and all organic. I will be the frequency that is put into the BFG and then transmitted out. I will transmute the energy of the biorhythmic field generator to transmit it out into my frequency, because I know how to enhance my frequency and turn it down and tone it and tune it depending on my environment. Biorhythmics. So anyway, that's just all very long-winded. I mean, honestly, I could talk about this for hours, which is probably why it's a good thing I'm going to get my own radio station. So between that and making my shows, I'm just so excited. And then, we'll get the Quantum Menace and my dating app made on the side. I've got a lot of wonderful people offering to help me get all of that started. So while that's going on in the background, I can do my radio show and make my shows and all that sort of thing. And then once the game and the app come out, I'll, that is the next step. And obviously opening the Alchemist Cavern, and then with all that money together, I can build the Dragonarium, or the Dragon on the Hill, the home for children, Indigenous children. So with that being said, I'm going to go now and have something to eat and drink, because it's probably one of the reasons why I'm stammering, because I had a very early breakfast and I haven't had anything since, and it's now the afternoon. So I'm going to let you go. I will put links in the description box below. And if you have any questions, my email's there, and I will speak to you soon. Ka kite anō.